The chapter that you are learning today is going to help you save someone's life tomorrow. So pay attention. In fact, every time that you sit down to study, always remind yourself this, that why are you doing this? Yes, to save someone's life tomorrow. That is what you are destined to do. So with that, we start with another important topic of the nose, and that is tumors of the nose. Recently, there have been quite a number of questions from this chapter. So we will first start with the benign tumors and then we will go to the malignant tumors. Now, in the benign tumors, the most common benign tumor of the external nose is rhinophyma. So yes, this is how rhinophyma appears like, and this is an image-based question of your exam. This is known as rhinophyma. And yes, it is also known by other names. What are the other names? It is known as elephantiasis of the nose. You can see the appearance and you can know that yes, it is known as elephantiasis of the nose. It is also known as potato nose. It is known as potato nose. Potato is here. Where is cauliflower? Cauliflower ear. What is cauliflower ear? Yes, that was hematoma of the pinna. And what is potato nose? Potato nose is rhinophyma. Now, who develops this? Usually, you will see that these are males and they are in middle age or elderly. So, they are males and they are middle age or elderly. Middle age or elderly. And these patients usually have a very long-standing history of some condition of the skin. What condition of the skin this is? That is acne rosacea. So now what at all has happened in the nose of the patient that this has become so hypertrophic? What has happened? Is it a tumor of what? It is hypertrophy of sweat, sebaceous, ceruminous glands of the tip of nose. What is that? Yes, this is because of hypertrophy of sebaceous glands of the tip of nose. So, it is because of hypertrophy of sebaceous glands. Of the tip of nose. So, now how will you manage this? Do you think this hypertrophy of sebaceous glands of the tip of nose will lead to anything? Usually it is just a cosmetic deformity that the patient has, and usually patients do not want to get anything done. But if at all they are bothered about their look, or if at all it is too large that it is causing nasal obstruction, then in that case it can be excised. How will you excise it? Either you can excise it directly with a knife and go for skin grafting, or what you can do is you can excise it also by laser. So what can be done is the management is excision. Management is excise. Yes, either with knife or with laser. With knife or with laser. The laser that we use here is usually CO2 laser. So yes, these patients you will see very commonly in your OPD. So if your eyes know, you will be able to spot. And yes, if you ask them all this history of long-standing history of acne rosacea, you will be able to find it. Now coming to the nasal cavity, the most common benign tumor of the nasal cavity is inverted papilloma. Again, inverted papilloma has been repeatedly asked in your exams. Now what is this? Yes, this is a papilloma. So the name itself tells you it will be caused by some virus. Which virus is that? It is caused by human papilloma virus. And this one tumor is one of the worst tumor. Why worst tumor? It has all the bad characteristics that a tumor can have. For example, what are the bad characteristics that any tumor can have? It is benign, no? So why bad? It is benign, but it is locally invasive. Okay, it is benign, but it is locally invasive. Second, it is benign, but it is pre-malignant. Also, it is very highly recurrent. Very highly recurrent. And the worst thing about this tumor is that this arises from the lateral wall of the nose. So if it arises from lateral wall, why is that the worst thing? It arises from the lateral wall. What do we have in the lateral wall? We have the meatus cells. So it arises from the lateral wall, most commonly from the area of the middle meatus. So it is confused very commonly with a polyp. So that is why it is ignored for a very long time. Yes, so that is why you always have to remember that any elderly who is presenting to you with nasal obstruction, unilateral nasal obstruction, with blood-tinged nasal discharge, and what you find in the nose is a polypoidal mass arising from the middle meatal area, don't ignore it and don't just tell this is a polyp, just forget it. It is too small to cause any problem right now, just leave it. Don't do that. In fact, I had this patient who came to me. He knew that he had a polyp in the nose and his physician had referred the patient to me now after 2 years of him diagnosing that there is some polyp in the nose, and he told that nothing needs to be done. Now, why did he refer to me now? Yes, why? Because right now he started having blood-tinged nasal discharge also. Yes, he was around 60 years male, and when I examined, immediately I got a biopsy done, and yes, it was an inverted papilloma. So yes, don't ignore. This is one thing. This is very, very commonly asked in your exam, and this one point will help you diagnose the patient quite early. So what is the presentation that should immediately make you suspect that this can be a carcinoma, this can be a tumor, this can be a inverted papilloma? Yes, be it a carcinoma, be it an inverted papilloma. Any elderly where you are finding a unilateral nasal mass arising from the middle meatal or from the lateral wall, always rule out a malignancy. So yes, what is the presentation here? The presentation is a elderly. It is a elderly. Usually it is males, elderly male, and has come with what complaint? Unilateral. Always remember, unilateral nasal obstruction with blood-tinged nasal discharge. With blood-tinged nasal discharge. With blood-tinged nasal discharge. So all these patients always go for endoscopy. And what will you find on endoscopy there? Yes, you will find a mass arising from the middle meatal area, from the lateral wall. Yes, so very important to remember is it rises from the lateral wall. You will see a polypoidal mass and it has got a very papillary appearance. Now, why is it known as inverted when it has a papillary appearance? Yes, on the outside the appearance is papillary, so it is known as papilloma. But why inverted? Yes, because when you do a histopathology of this mass, what you find is that the epithelium, instead of growing towards the outside, just see here, it grows towards the stroma inside. Just see here, it grows towards the stroma. So that is why it is known as inverted. The epithelium grows towards the stroma. So it is known as inverted papilloma. And also on the CT, what you find is, yes, just see here, CT you will find the mass, it can be filling only the maxillary sinus. From the lateral wall it can go to the maxillary sinus, from the lateral wall it can go to the ethmoid. So but yes, you will see expansion of the sinuses, and this CT finding along with the endoscopic finding was a question that was given in your exam this time. The presentation was a elderly male, unilateral nasal obstruction, blood-tinged nasal discharge. The endoscopy and the CT finding was given, and yes, the endoscopy was a very papillary appearance mass that was seen in the nasal cavity. So yes, that was inverted papilloma. How will you manage this? Yes, what you have to do is you have to go for wide excision. Why wide excision? Because this is a locally invasive tumor. So you have to excise everywhere possible that you find that there can be invasion. So you have to go for wide excision. Wide excision. Will you also give radiotherapy to this patient? Radiotherapy? Yes, so remember, this is benign or this is malignant. This is a benign tumor. Do you give radiotherapy in benign tumors? No. So the management is only wide excision. No, you do not give radiotherapy. Not radiotherapy. Radiotherapy is not given. So now coming to the benign tumor of the paranasal sinuses. Yes, we know the benign tumor of the external nose. Do we know that? Yes, quickly tell me, what's the most common benign tumor of the external nose? Yes, that is rhinophyma. It is also known as potato nose. Also known as elephantiasis. Seen in which skin condition? Acne rosacea. More common male, female? Male. Okay, more common inverted papilloma is in male or female? Again male. Yes, so we will see that most of the tumors are in males. Most of the tumors are elderly except for few exceptions that I will tell you where we will see that. So in the nasal cavity, most common benign tumor is inverted papilloma. Arising from where? Yes, arising from the lateral wall. Is it recurrent? very recurrent. Is it locally invasive? Yes. Is it pre-malignant? Yes, it is pre-malignant and arising from the lateral wall of the nose. And most common benign tumor of the paranasal sinuses is osteoma. Now, is recurrence common following inverted papilloma excision? Yes or no? Yes, it is common. So, do we need to then follow up the patients to find out whether there is recurrence or not? Yes, follow up is very important because recurrence is common here. Recurrence is present. So, that is why you need to follow up the patients. And when you follow up the patients, you follow up the patients with both CT scan and with MRI. CT scan will show you the bony details and MRI will show you the soft tissue. But more important, we have already excised all the bone. In inverted papilloma, we have done a wide excision of all the area that was involved. So now what gives us a better idea is the MRI. Why the MRI? Because this will be able to differentiate whether it is secretions or it is a mass. It will be able to differentiate a normal tissue, all the tissues of the skin, of the infratemporal fossa from a tumor tissue in a better way. So that is why this is better. This is better for follow-up. But this does not mean that you will get only a MRI done. You will get both CT and MRI, but better is a MRI. You will look for the normal tissue, the difference between the normal and the tumor tissue or secretions and mass. You will look for in the MRI. Better for follow-up. This is a bony tumor. Most commonly, the benign tumors, just remember that they are most common from above downwards. All the benign tumors of the paranasal sinuses, they are more common from above downwards. What does that mean? It means that the most common site for osteoma, which is a benign tumor of the paranasal sinus, will be frontal, followed by ethmoid, followed by maxillary, whereas carcinomas, malignant tumors in the paranasal sinus, they follow a reverse order. Most common there will be maxilla, then ethmoid, then frontal. So, osteoma most common will be in the frontal, followed by ethmoid, followed by maxilla. So, there is an exception here. So here this is how a osteoma will look like, a frontal osteoma will look like. Now there is an exception here. What is that exception? And that exception is fibrous dysplasia. Fibrous dysplasia. Fibrous dysplasia is another benign tumor, but this is benign tumor of the paranasal sinuses, but this is seen most commonly in the maxillary sinus. And yes, this is asked in your exam. This is seen most commonly in the maxillary sinus. And what happens in fibrous dysplasia? The name itself tells you that the normal bone, the medullary bone, is replaced by fibro-osseous tissue. So the medullary bone gets converted to fibro-osseous tissue. Osseous tissue, and this is one benign tumor which is seen in young. You will always see young. So whenever you are seeing a young patient where you are seeing a mass on the maxilla, and when you palpate, it is hard, bony, it is very asymmetric, then always rule out a fibrous dysplasia, because osteoma is more common in the frontal sinus. If it is a growth that you are seeing on the maxillary bone, then this is likely to be a fibrous dysplasia, not osteoma. So if this picture is given to you and in the choice is osteoma or fibrous dysplasia, then what will you choose? Yes, you have to choose fibrous dysplasia. So this is seen in young. This is a very irregular, asymmetric mass. And when you get the CT scan done or the X-ray done, what you will find is a appearance which is typically like this. This appearance is what is known as the total white appearance of the maxilla. That is what is known as the ground glass appearance. So again, this is asked in your exam. The CT appearance of fibrous dysplasia. This is ground glass appearance. Ground glass appearance. Now this condition of fibrous dysplasia has to be differentiated from a very similar condition which is known as ossifying fibroma. ossifying fibroma. This is a very similar condition as the name also tells you that the bone is replaced by fibrous tissue. And here, what is the difference between a fibrous dysplasia and ossifying fibroma? That ossifying fibroma, can you see here? It is localized. Yes, so this is a very well circumscribed lesion, whereas the previous thing that we did, that was a fibrous dysplasia. It is not a well circumscribed, it is very extended mass that you see. Most of the maxilla, it is extending everywhere. It is asymmetric also, irregular also, whereas ossifying fibroma has got very regular and very marginated appearance. It has got well defined margins. So to excise a ossifying fibroma is very easy. You can just excise it completely, whereas in fibrous dysplasia you cannot excise. The whole of the bone is involved. Then what to do in that condition? Yes, all you can do is to give the patient a cosmetic benefit. You can resculpture the bone. Everything that is irregular, that is extended out of the limits, all that you can just remove. So the surgical treatment here will not cure the underlying cause. It will just give the cosmetic benefit to the patient. So here the management here will be excision of the complete mass. Now also remember that ossifying fibroma is not very commonly seen in the maxilla like fibrous dysplasia. Fibrous dysplasia is most commonly seen in the maxilla, whereas ossifying fibroma is most commonly seen in mandible. So this is most common in mandible. Second, followed by maxilla. In fibrous dysplasia, what you do is surgical resculpturing. Okay, so now quickly you are going to tell me, yes, this is going to be a quick revision for you. Tell me most common benign tumor of the external nose. External nose, yes, potato nose, very good. Most common benign tumor of the nasal cavity, inverted papilloma. Inverted papilloma is very, very commonly asked in your exam. Inverted papilloma is also known as Schneiderian papilloma. It is known as inverted papilloma, or it is also known as Schneiderian papilloma. What is Schneiderian? Schneiderian membrane was another name that was given to the epithelial lining of the nose, the respiratory mucosa. What is that? Yes, ciliated columnar pseudostratified epithelium. Since it arises from the lateral wall, from the same epithelium, it was known as Schneiderian papilloma. It was also known as Ringer's tumor. Ringer's tumor. Why Ringer's tumor? Yes, because it has a inverted appearance, so it is known as also Ringer's tumor. Yes, but most commonly nowadays it is known as inverted papilloma. But again, the same question, if it is asked by these names, inverted papilloma, if instead of that is given Ringer's tumor, if instead of that is given Schneiderian papilloma, we know what is being asked. The most common benign tumor of the paranasal sinuses is, yes, osteoma. Osteoma is seen most commonly in frontal sinus, except for which paranasal sinus benign tumor is seen most commonly in the maxillary sinus? Yes, that is fibrous dysplasia. It has to be differentiated from ossifying fibroma, which is well circumscribed. Ossifying fibroma. And what is the CT appearance of fibrous dysplasia? Yes, very good. It is ground glass appearance. So now coming to the carcinomas of the nose and paranasal sinuses. Now everywhere in the nose as well as paranasal sinuses, the most common carcinoma is a squamous cell carcinoma. There are few exceptions, and that is what you have to remember. Otherwise, in ENT, in fact, not only in the nose, in ENT, in ear, nose, throat, the most common carcinoma everywhere most commonly is a squamous cell carcinoma. You just remember where the except is, rest everywhere you can blindly mark it as squamous cell carcinoma. So what is the except? One except is the external nose. So in the external nose, the most common carcinoma is a basal cell carcinoma. We know basal cell carcinomas are seen more commonly in, yes, the sun exposed areas, like in the pinna also. More common is basal cell carcinoma. Rest everywhere, external auditory canal, there more common is squamous cell carcinoma. So here also external nose, most common is basal cell carcinoma. Rest everywhere it is a squamous cell carcinoma. And the basal cell carcinoma is also known as, yes, it is known as rodent ulcer. It is known as rodent ulcer. So of the external nose is basal cell carcinoma. It is also known as rodent ulcer. Rodent ulcer. And yes, like any tumors, These tumors of the nose as well as the paranasal sinuses are more common in elderly, and they are more common in males. Whereas in the nasal cavity, tell me most common carcinoma. Nasal cavity, squamous cell carcinoma. Paranasal sinuses, again squamous cell carcinoma. So nasal cavity, the most common carcinoma is a squamous cell carcinoma. Paranasal sinuses, again it is a squamous cell carcinoma. In the nasal cavity, do you know what the squamous cell carcinoma of the nasal cavity is also known as? That is known as nose pickers carcinoma. Yes, because it is seen in people who repeatedly do nose picking. Repeatedly they cause ulceration of the nose. So it is known as nose pickers carcinoma. Nose pickers carcinoma. So in the paranasal sinuses also most common is squamous cell carcinoma. Now you will tell me, if it is paranasal sinus carcinoma, it will be seen most commonly in which paranasal sinus? Yes, I told you when I told you the benign tumors, that benign tumors are more common from above downwards, whereas malignant tumors of the paranasal sinus are more common from below upwards. So most common will be the maxillary sinus. Most common will be maxillary sinus. Now here, very, very important and very commonly asked question is that maxillary sinus carcinoma is seen in some people. Which are those people? Yes, it is seen more commonly in carpenters. It is seen more commonly in people who burn wood. Yes, so it is seen more commonly in people who have wood exposure, and the type of wood that they are exposed to usually determines what carcinoma they will have. So if it is a soft wood that they are exposed to, then they develop squamous cell carcinoma, and that is much more common than the other variety, and that is in people who are exposed to hardwood. So people who are working in hardwood furniture industries, in them what develops most commonly is a adenocarcinoma. Okay, so softwood is squamous cell carcinoma, hardwood is adenocarcinoma. Adenocarcinoma. So is that clear? In the paranasal sinus carcinomas, most common, in fact, in the nose, in the nasal cavity, most common is squamous cell carcinoma. In the paranasal sinus carcinoma, most common is squamous cell carcinoma. Most common site is, again, it is maxillary sinus, except, so we have one exception here. What is that except? Except in people exposed to hardwood. There, what is more common is adenocarcinoma. And adenocarcinoma is seen more commonly in the ethmoid sinus. Ethmoid sinus. So there are few exceptions that we have to remember in tumors. So what was one exception? What was the first exception? That most common benign tumor of the paranasal sinus is osteoma, and that is most common in frontal. Which benign tumor of the paranasal sinus is not most common in the frontal? Yes, that is fibrous dysplasia. Fibrous dysplasia. And also it is asked in your exam that this is seen most commonly in which population? Yes, so in Africa there is a population which is known as the Bantus tribe. There they have the culture of burning wood, and the wood that is available there is mahogany wood, which is the most carcinogenic. So that is why this carcinoma of the paranasal sinuses is most commonly seen in Bantus tribe. Most commonly it is seen in Bantus tribe of Africa. So now just have a look here. Yes, what is this carcinoma? What is this carcinoma? Is this a squamous cell carcinoma or a basal cell carcinoma? Yes, of the external nose, most common is basal cell carcinoma. So this is the basal cell carcinoma of the external nose, also known as rodent ulcer. Rodent ulcer. Now, in the nasal cavity, we also have another epithelium other than the main lining epithelium. What is the main lining epithelium? Ciliated columnar pseudostratified epithelium. We have another very important epithelium in the nose, in the upper one-third. What is that? Yes, that is olfactory epithelium. So yes, tumors can arise from the olfactory epithelium also, though it is very rare. Only 5% of the tumors arise from the olfactory epithelium, but they can arise, and if they arise, this is what is known as olfactory neuroblastoma. So olfactory neuroblastoma. Neuroblastoma. It is also known as esthesioneuroblastoma. Esthesioneuroblastoma. Neuroblastoma. So this is arising from the olfactory epithelium. Now here, this is a tumor of exceptions. This has been asked in your exam. Olfactory neuroblastoma, it was asked as esthesia neuroblastoma. What was asked? It arises from where? Yes, in fact, has been asked again another question, that the tumor that arises from the olfactory epithelium is known as which of the following? Yes, so that is esthesia neuroblastoma. Now this is a tumor of exceptions. Why? Because otherwise, most commonly tumors of the nose, of the paranasal sinuses, they are more common in elderly males. Now here, this is seen more commonly in females. What is the age? It is not seen only in elderly. It has a bimodal age occurrence. Bimodal. What are the two ages? Two peaks is 20 years and around 50 to 60 years. Around 50 to 60 years. So this can be seen in young also. That is why it makes this tumor very, very important. Though it is only total 5% of this total. But this is very important because it can be seen in young also. Second, it is a very, very aggressive tumor. It is a very aggressive tumor. Very aggressive tumor, and it can cause metastasis very early. It can cause metastasis. Metastasis can be to the lymph nodes. It can also be distant metastasis. So how will this patient present with? Any young? Yes, presenting with blood tinged nasal discharge, nasal obstruction. Yes, and when you examine, what you find is a cherry red vascular mass arising from where? From the roof of the nose. So the patient will present with nasal obstruction plus blood tinged nasal discharge, blood tinged nasal discharge. And yes, on examination, on endoscopy, what you will find is a cherry red vascular mass. Another important thing that you need to remember about this tumor is that this is a neuroendocrine tumor. This can be hormone secreting. So that is why any patient who is presenting with a mass like this, always investigate for the hormone secreting. Always investigate for any other paraneoplastic syndrome. So this is neuroendocrine. This is a neuroendocrine tumor. This is hormone secreting. And for early cases, if the patient you have been able to diagnose quite early, then in that case, early cases, you can just go for surgical excision, and in late cases, you will have to go for surgical excision plus radiotherapy. And very, very important for the diagnosis of esthesia neuroblastoma is to get a CT scan done. There you will be able to see exactly that. See here, this tumor. Can you see it is rising from the roof? It is rising from the roof. Yes, this tumor will have the attachment to the roof. If you are seeing any mass in the nose, which is only in the maxillary sinus, all this area. Yes, when inverted papilloma was given to you in your exam last year, the CT scan was given, and the CT scan nowhere had the attachment to the cribriform plate area, to the roof where the lining epithelium is the olfactory epithelium from where the olfactory neuroblastoma arises. One of the choices was olfactory neuroblastoma. Yes, so how you can diagnose is you always have to see from where it is arising. The olfactory plate has to be involved for you to diagnose it as esthesioneuroblastoma. So what do we know of the tumors of the nose, of the nasal cavity as of now? That in the nasal cavity, most common carcinoma is squamous cell carcinoma. In the paranasal sinuses also, most common carcinoma is squamous cell carcinoma. In the paranasal sinuses, the most common carcinoma, that is a squamous cell carcinoma, arises most commonly from maxillary sinus. Exception is adenocarcinoma arising from the ethmoid sinus, and that is in hardwood furniture industries. Now, maxillary sinus carcinoma are overall, if we think about the carcinomas of the nose and paranasal sinuses, then most common overall is maxillary sinus carcinomas. And that is why whenever it is asked in your exam, what is asked is staging of maxillary sinus carcinoma. So yes, we have to know here 3 types of staging of maxillary sinus carcinoma. Yes, the earlier two are not the very commonly used, but yes, it is still asked in your exam. The first is the Ongren's classification. This is Ongren's classification. Now, what is the Ongren's classification? It states that there is a line, the Ongren's line. It is an imaginary line that you draw from the root of nose to the angle of mandible like this. Yes. And what this says is that this line divides the maxillary sinus into two areas. Area above the line and the area below the line. The area above the line is what is known as suprastructure. It is known as suprastructure, whereas the area below the line is what is known as infrastructure. Infrastructure. And what this classification states is that the carcinoma of infrastructure has a better prognosis than suprastructure. So, infrastructure has better prognosis. Better prognosis. And this has worse prognosis. It is so obvious, no? If you are drawing the line like this, what is the suprastructure? Suprastructure is the area here. It can very easily go into the orbit. It can very easily go intracranially. So definitely it will have a bad prognosis. Whereas the tumors that are arising inferiorly, they will have a better prognosis. Okay, now if you have understood this, now tell me that which of the following carcinomas of the maxillary sinus will have a better prognosis? Inferomedial, posterosuprolateral. Inferomedial, posterosuprolateral. So which is the infrastructure? Infrastructure is inferomedial. Infero and medial. Yes, in other words, if I tell you that when we do the staging, you will see that this classification is of a lot of use for you to help you to remember the staging also. If there is any tumor of the maxillary sinus which has gone into the lateral wall of nose, is that an early stage or a late stage? Yes, lateral wall of nose is what? It is the medial. Yes, so that is infrastructure. So that is the early stage. If any tumor of the maxillary sinus has got to the palate, then that is early stage or late stage? Yes, that is the early stage. Again, that is the infrastructure. Whereas if any tumor of the maxillary sinus has gone into the orbit, it has gone into the frontal sinus, it has gone to the sphenoid sinus, it has gone posteriorly. What is posteriorly to the maxilla? Yes, there we have the pterygoid plates. So all that is good prognosis or bad prognosis? Yes, that will be a bad prognosis. So that is why this Ongren's classification still holds a lot of significance to help you remember what is the early stage and late stage in the TNM staging. Another classification that was used was the Liedermann's classification. Liedermann's classification. The Liedermann's classification is not very commonly used and it is not very commonly asked. Ongren's line and Ongren's classification is very, very commonly asked. Now, what is this Liedermann's classification? The Liedermann's classification states that there are two horizontal lines of Sebelius. And what are these two horizontal lines? One of them passes from the floor of the orbit like this, and the second passes from the floor of the maxillary sinus, and this divides this area of the sinuses into three areas. This is the area of the suprastructure. So the suprastructure will have the ethmoid sinuses, suprastructure will have the frontal sinuses, the sphenoid sinuses. This is the mesostructure. The mesostructure will mainly have the maxillary sinus and along with that the nasal cavity, the main nasal cavity, and this is the infrastructure, and the infrastructure will mainly have the alveolar process. So you just don't confuse the suprastructure and the infrastructure of a Liedermann's classification with the Ongren's classification. Can you make out they are different? Yes, the infrastructure of the Liedermann's classification only has the palate and the suprastructure here has all these sinuses. So this is what is the Liedermann's classification. Otherwise, the most common classification that is followed now is the TNM staging. Now the TNM staging, yes, we have to remember what is T1, what is T2, what is T3, what is T4. Why do we have to remember that? Because when it is asked in the management that what is the management of carcinoma of the maxilla, and yes, that is asked in your exam. So there it is never given that this is a T1 stage, this is a T2 stage. What is given is that in this patient diagnosed to be a maxillary sinus carcinoma, what was involved was palate or lateral wall of nose or orbit or frontal sinus, pterygoid plate. So there you will have to evaluate which stage this is, because that will change the management. The early stage is the stage 1 and stage 2. Late stage is stage 3 and stage 4. Early stage management is just a surgical excision, whereas late stage the management is surgical excision followed by radiotherapy. We will just write that down. But now why I want you to know is that why you need to remember the classification staging of maxillary sinus carcinoma, because if the presentation is given and you are asked what will be the management, or you are asked what stage it is, so you should be able to tell. So what is stage 1 for this? I told you Ongren's classification is very useful to remember that. So you will just remember it like that only. What is the Ongren's line? It runs from the root of the nose to the angle of mandible. Yes, root of nose to angle of mandible. Just remember that like this. Okay. Now what is stage 1? Stage 1 is when only the mucosa is involved. Only mucosa is involved. There is no bony erosion. There is no bony erosion. Okay. That is the earliest stage. Stage 2. What is stage 2? Stage 2 is infrastructure. Stage 2. Stage 2 is infrastructure. So what is infrastructure? Will you tell me that? Yes, 2 is when the tumor has involved the lateral wall of nose, and along with that, it has involved the palate, the hard palate. So that is the infrastructure. That is again an early stage. That is stage 2. Now what will be stage 3? Yes, stage 3 will be suprastructure. So what is suprastructure? Stage 3 will be when it has gone to the floor of the orbit, when it has involved the ethmoid sinuses, that is in the medial wall of the orbit. So that is stage 3. What is 3? 3 is when it has gone superiorly and posteriorly. So first we will do superiorly. What is superiorly? Superiorly is the floor of the orbit. Yes, just remember it has gone only till the floor. It has not gone inside the orbit. Okay, so it is just the floor of the orbit. It has involved the ethmoid sinuses. Yes, so that is what is superiorly. And what is posteriorly? What will be the posterior involvement? What is posteriorly? Do you remember the anatomy? Yes, just see here. This here is the maxillary sinus. And this is the maxillary sinus. Posterior to that, this is the posterior wall of the maxillary sinus. Here we have the pterygoid plates. If you remember, this is what is the area of the sphenopalatine fossa. Do you remember that behind the maxillary sinus? Yes, that is the sphenopalatine fossa or the pterygopalatine fossa. And here laterally, all this area is the infratemporal fossa. Laterally, this area is the infratemporal fossa. So when it goes posteriorly, if it goes posteriorly to where? Only up till the posterior wall of the maxillary sinus. Posterior wall of maxillary sinus, or posteriorly if it goes to the sphenopalatine or the pterygopalatine fossa, only up till the fossa, that is stage 3. Is that clear? What will be stage 4? Rest everything is stage 4. So what will be stage 4? Stage 4 is when it has extended to the pterygoid plates. Further posteriorly when it has gone. So when it has gone further posteriorly, that is pterygoid plates. Pterygoid plates. Okay, when it has gone further laterally, like the infratemporal fossa. When it has involved from the infratemporal fossa, the skin of the cheek. And when it has gone, this was posterior spread, which has extended more than the stage 3. And when it is superior spread more than stage 3. What was stage 3? Stage 3 was just the floor of orbit. What will be 4? When it has got, when superiorly it has involved the orbital contents. Yes, only the ethmoid sinus, that was stage 3. When it has gone further superiorly to involve the frontal sinus, sphenoid sinus. Frontal, sphenoid sinus, cribriform plate. Okay, so what you can do is just remember one, that is very simple. Tell me quickly one. What is one? Just mucosa is involved. There is no bone erosion. What is two? Two is when that is infrastructure. Infrastructure is what? Infrastructure is the lateral wall of nose or the palate, hard palate. Three, suprastructure. Suprastructure which is very adjoining to the maxilla, that is the floor of the orbit and the ethmoid sinus, and posteriorly just going to the posterior wall of the maxillary sinus and the sphenopalatine fossa. Outside this much, rest everything is stage 4. So the management will be, and yes, you will first confirm it by CT. You will get a CT scan done and you will see the CT scan. Can you see the bone erosion? Yes, bone erosion of everywhere. Now tell me what stage this patient is. You have got the CT scan done. Yes, and CT scan will help you decide the staging. So accordingly, you will manage this patient. So what is the stage? It has gone laterally. Can you see it has gone into the infra from the maxillary sinus. The bone is eroded, everything, and it has gone out. It has gone into the infratemporal fossa. Yes, and it is also involving the skin. Can you see here all the subcutaneous tissue? Everywhere it has gone. So this is stage 4. Yes, this is stage 4. So how will you manage this patient? So how do you manage a maxillary sinus carcinoma? Early stage, that is stage 1 and stage 2. The management is only surgical excision. So in all tumors of the maxillary sinus, we have to excise. Surgery has to be done. So surgical excision might be curative or it might just be done in late stages to debulk the tumor so that the effect of the radiotherapy is somewhat better. So stage 3 and stage 4, the management is surgery followed by radiotherapy. Surgery followed by radiotherapy. And what's the surgery that you do? Yes, the surgery that we do is a maxillectomy. Obviously, it is a carcinoma of the maxilla, so we will have to go for maxillectomy. That can be a partial excision of the maxilla or a total excision of the maxilla. That can be a partial maxillectomy or a total maxillectomy. So now if the extent of the tumor is known to us, we know how we will manage the patient. Now sometimes in a question is just given that this is the patient of carcinoma of the maxilla of the right side with the right submandibular lymph node or right upper deep cervical lymph node, and what should be the management of the patient. So do you know that if there is a neck node, it directly is what stage? Yes, that is common for all tumors, mostly all tumors. They follow the same rule. Okay, so before I tell you that, can you tell me a maxillary sinus carcinoma, if it goes to the lymph nodes, it will go to which lymph nodes? Now, usually, whether it is the nose or the maxillary sinus or the sinuses, the lymphatic drainage is not too much. So, thankfully, the lymph node metastasis is not too much. But if at all it occurs, the lymphatic drainage of the nose and paranasal sinuses follows two pathways. So, we have the anterior pathway and we have the posterior pathway. So, the anteroinferior part of the nose and PNS, it follows the anterior pathway, and the anterior pathway goes to the submandibular lymph node. It goes to submandibular lymph node and from submandibular lymph node to the upper deep cervical lymph node. This here is the upper deep cervical lymph node, The upper deep cervical lymph node is also known as jugulodigastric lymph node. Jugulodigastric lymph node. Now we have the posterior pathway. Now what is the posterior pathway? The rest of the whole of the nose as well as the paranasal sinuses, they go to the posterior pathway. So rest of nose and paranasal sinuses, they drain to the posterior pathway. Posterior pathway is the retropharyngeal lymph nodes. The retropharyngeal lymph node, where are they? We have not done pharynx till now. Yes. So what is the retropharyngeal lymph node? Retropharyngeal lymph node is behind in the pharynx. Yes, behind the pharyngeal wall. So that is not accessible to either inspection or to palpation. So what is the next important lymph node? It drains from the retropharyngeal to upper deep cervical. So from there it comes to the upper deep cervical. So which means that if at all lymphatic metastasis occurs in maxillary sinus carcinoma, it can occur to two lymph nodes. Which lymph node? Either the submandibular lymph node or it can go to upper deep cervical lymph node. So now if there is lymph node metastasis, which stage does it become directly? Do we know that? Yes, so always remember this is for most of the tumors, stage 1, and that is the easy way that I am telling you how you can remember it. Stage 1 is always T1, N0, M0. That is why when we just know what is T1, we know that is stage 1. We almost always label it as T1 is stage 1. Yes. So stage 2 is T2, N0, M0. That is simple, right? So stage 1 is T1, N0, M0. Stage 2 is T2, N0, M0. Stage 3 is, can you guess? Yes, T3, N0, M0. Very good. T3, N0, M0. And also along with this, T1, T2 and T3 with N1. So if there is a neck node, it is straight away which stage? It is stage 3. So if it is given right side maxillary sinus carcinoma with right upper deep cervical lymph node or right submandibular lymph node, it will be, what will be the management? You know it is stage 3. So what will be the management? Tell me the management. Yes, surgery followed by radiotherapy. Rest everything more than this much is stage 4. Is that clear? So more than this much, if you just remember up till stage 3 is very simple. Up till stage 3 is very simple to remember. Anything more than that is stage 4. So if it is more than that also, again the management is surgery followed by radiotherapy. So what you need to remember is that T1, N0, M0. So if it is given just anteroinferior part is involved, then it is a stage 1. If the lymph node is involved, then directly it goes to which stage? It is stage 3. Now all the tumors of the paranasal sinuses, all the tumors of the nose, after the advent of endoscopes, it has been possible to excise the tumors by endoscopic approach, unless and until it has become, it has gone to areas where excision with the help of endoscope is simply not possible, like it has gone laterally also to the orbit also, and it has extended intracranially also, where possible endoscopic excision will not be possible. Rest of the places wherever it is possible, it is always better to go for endoscopic excision. And yes, here is asked what is the incision that is given when you want to excise the maxilla. Whether it is a partial maxillectomy or whether it is a total maxillectomy, we will first have to expose the maxilla properly. So how do we expose the maxilla? This is the tumor that the patient is having. Now if I want to completely expose the maxilla, how should my incision be? Yes, so the incision that can be used, the types of incision that can be used is, one is this incision. Yes, you give the incision like this below the orbit and then in the nasofacial crease coming up till the philtrum. This is what is known as the Weber-Ferguson incision. Ferguson incision. And yes, this has been asked in the exam. This picture was given and asked what is this incision. Or it can be just if you just want to do a partial maxillectomy. Now what happens after you give this incision? You give the incision and then you raise the skin flap. You have given this incision like this and then you raise this complete skin flap. So now the maxilla lies in front of you. Whatever you want to do, a partial or total maxillectomy, you can go for that. Now a little more conservative approach is when you give the incision only in the nasofacial crease. Okay, if you give the incision only in the nasofacial crease like this, yes, this is known as the Moore's incision. Moore's incision. Now also we can do it by this approach when we do not want to give an external scar. This will be a cosmetic scar that you are giving to the patient, external scar. So when we do not want to give an external scar, what can also be done is that you give an incision from one molar to the other and raise the skin flap like this to expose the maxilla, and then whatever you want to do, either partial or total maxillectomy, you can do that. And what is that known as? That is what is known as mid-facial degloving approach. This is mid-facial degloving approach. Otherwise, wherever possible, preferable is to go for endoscopic approach. Is endoscopic. But yes, this should not compromise on your access. Don't think that you will go for the endoscopic approach and even if you leave behind something, that is okay. No. So if you want a good access, go for a external incision. There are so many types of approaches and all these approaches you need to know. Now there is another tumor in the nose that is a very aggressive tumor and very destroying tumor. That is what is known as midline lethal granuloma. It is known by many other names. It is known as Stewart's granuloma. It is known as T-cell lymphoma. It is known as natural killer lymphoma. Why these names? All these names just to help you remember what exactly this is. So yes, this is a lymphoma. So this is a non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. This is non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and it expresses T-cell antigens. It expresses T-cell antigens. And yes, it is known as midline lethal because it involves the midline structures of the face, the mid-facial structures, midline facial structures, which means, so it will involve the nose, it will involve the palate. So that is why it is known as midline lethal granuloma. Why lethal? Yes, it is a very aggressive tumor. It is a very aggressive tumor, very aggressive. It is angioinvasive. Why is it aggressive? Because it is angioinvasive. Yes, any other angioinvasive infection of the nose you know of? Yes, mucormycosis. This is a tumor which is angioinvasive. It causes necrosis, it causes ischemia, it causes a lot of necrosis because of ischemia. So it causes ischemia, it causes a lot of necrosis of all the midfacial structures. It causes necrosis. Now here also we need to know that here the tumor cells show presence of Epstein-Barr virus. So tumor cells, there is presence of Epstein-Barr virus in the tumor cells. Any other tumor you know of with association with Epstein-Barr virus? Okay, very good. Burkitt's lymphoma. Yes, in the pharynx, we have not yet done the pharynx part. Yes, in the pharynx, nasopharyngeal carcinoma also is one tumor where there is association with Epstein-Barr virus infection. And when I am going to tell you that, you will tell me this. Yes, that this is another tumor. The midline lethal granuloma, T-cell lymphoma, natural killer cell lymphoma, where there is association with Epstein-Barr virus. The best management is radiotherapy. Yes, here surgical excision is not the management. The management is radiotherapy, and if in recurrent cases or as I told you, it is an aggressive tumor. So if there is a lot of dissemination of the tumor, in that case, in recurrence or in dissemination, you can go for chemotherapy also. Along with radiotherapy, chemotherapy can be given. And is surgery a management for these patients? Yes, surgical reconstruction of the defect that has occurred following because of the tumor can be done. But surgery is not to excise the tumor. The management of this tumor is by radiotherapy with or without chemotherapy. So surgery is surgical once the patient has been cured. After that, the surgical reconstruction of the defect can be done. And the prognosis is very poor. It has got a very poor prognosis. So that is what you needed to know in the tumors of the nose and the paranasal sinuses. So quickly you are going to keep your pens down. Yes, quickly tell me, what is the most common benign tumor of the external nose? Rhinophyma. Most common benign tumor of the nasal cavity? Inverted papilloma. Most common benign tumor of the paranasal sinuses? Osteoma. Osteoma most common in frontal sinus. What is the exception? Yes, which benign tumor of the paranasal sinus is not most commonly seen in the frontal sinus? Yes, it is fibrous dysplasia. That is most commonly seen in the maxilla. It has to be differentiated from ossifying fibroma, which is well circumscribed. Ossifying fibroma. Ossifying fibroma, most common site is, it is the mandible, followed by maxilla. Whereas fibrous dysplasia, most common site is the maxilla. Coming to the carcinomas, most common carcinomas of the external nose is basal cell carcinoma. Of the nasal cavity is squamous cell carcinoma, also known as squamous cell carcinoma of nasal cavity is known as nose pickers carcinoma. Basal cell carcinoma of the external nose, that is known as rodent ulcer. It is known as rodent ulcer. Most common carcinoma arising from the olfactory epithelium. Carcinoma arising from the olfactory epithelium, that is known as olfactory neuroblastoma, also known as Esthesioneuroblastoma. Esthesioneuroblastoma is more common in males or in females? In females. Rest all the carcinomas, they are more common in males. Which it is more common in elderly or in young? Esthesioneuroblastoma. It has bimodal age occurrence. Yes. Is it a vascular tumor? Yes, it is extremely vascular tumor appearing as a cherry red mass. Does it secrete hormones? Yes, it is hormone secreting tumor. So that makes esthesioneuroblastoma very important tumor, though it is seen only in 5% of the cases. What is the most common carcinoma of the paranasal sinuses? Squamous cell carcinoma. Except for in people exposed to hardwood, there the most common carcinoma is the adenocarcinoma. Adenocarcinoma is most commonly seen in ethmoid sinuses. It is seen most commonly in which tribes? Yes, in Bantu's tribe. Midline lethal granuloma. What is that? Midline lethal granuloma. Yes, it is a non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Expressing what antigens? T cell antigens. What is the management of midline lethal granuloma? Yes, radiotherapy. No surgical excision. Yes, what is the Ongren's line? What is Ongren's classification? The Ongren's line divides which sinus? Maxillary sinus into which two parts? Suprastructure and infrastructure. The carcinoma of infrastructure is better prognosis or worse prognosis? Better prognosis. The carcinoma going of the maxilla, going to the lateral wall of the nose or to the hard palate is what stage? What stage? Stage 1 or stage 2? It is T1 or T2? Yes, that is T2. So that will be managed by surgery only or surgery followed by radiotherapy. Yes, stage 2 is only surgery. Carcinoma of the maxilla which has gone to the pterygoid plates, which has gone to the frontal sinus, to the sphenoid sinus, to the infratemporal fossa, skin of the cheek, that is T4. So T4 is management is surgery, surgical excision followed by radiotherapy.